Chapter 21 Clearing the Space 3. After the acid slime died, Michael felt a surge of power flood through him. His mind sharpened, his strength increased, his defense tightened, and his speed quickened. I leveled up, Michael thought happily. Unlike the previous level up, where he only felt pain, this time he could clearly sense the changes that came with leveling up. And since he leveled up twice in a row, the boost in strength was even more pronounced. Excited, Michael immediately checked his status to see the results. Status: name, Michael Norman. Class: Necromancer Apprentice. Level: 4, Doom. Key XP: 48 by 600. Strength: 2.2, 0.6. Agility: 5.9, 1.0. Constitution: 4.0, 0.6. Intelligence: 7.5, 2.0. Attribute points: 13. Skills: Undead Summoning, Undead Revival, Detect, Basic Shot. Talent: Infinite Evolution. Class skill: Contract slot, 0 by 8. Seeing his newly updated status, Michael felt a surge of emotion. In just a little over an hour in the land of origin, he had transformed into someone monstrous by human standards. What thrilled Michael most was the increase in his attribute points, the foundation of his power. The sight of 13 attribute points filled him with joy. 13 attribute points, including the one I saved from my previous level up. I gained 6 from leveling up to level 3 and another 6 from reach ing level 4. Should I use them now? Michael was a bit conflicted, like having a sudden windfall without knowing where to spend it, even though the possibilities were endless. Considering how he might leverage these points for another power boost, Michael paid attention to his stats. My strength is now twice that of an average human. Even though it's my weakest stat, it's still very strong. For now, I don't need to increase it since I haven't felt the need. Strength wasn't a priority for a necromancer, but without any undead under his command, Michael was still essentially operating as a fake one. Then, there was his agility. It increased by an entire point, bringing my agility to nearly 6 times that of an average human. I'm probably not inferior in speed to most level 8 to 10 monsters, unless they're specialized in agility. Michael felt confident in his assessment. Since monsters lacked attribute points and relied solely on their race for stat boosts, even a level 5 monster specialized in speed might barely edge him out in agility, if at all. For one, I haven't seen any monsters other than slimes in this building. For now, I don't need to increase my speed since it's already sufficient, Michael thought. Moving on to the next stat, his constitution. Without hesitation, he added 1 point to his constitution, raising to 5 times that of an average human. The reasoning was simple. More vitality meant he'd be harder to kill. Plus, seeing his attribute points at even numbers was visually satisfying. There wasn't much to say about his intelligence stat. For now, it remained largely useless. One intriguing aspect of stats was that, when a stat related to one's class reached increments of 20 points, there was a 50% chance of gaining a new skill. Sometimes, one could even gain skills related to other, unrelated stats for every 20-point increase. However, a 50% chance didn't guarantee a skill every 40 points. One could potentially accumulate 100 points in a stat without receiving any skill. With his 13 attribute points, Michael could have invested in intelligence to try unlocking a skill, but it would be a risky gamble. If he failed, there would be no undoing it. Even though Necromancer Awakeners are rare, I doubt I'm the first whose starting location has made it inconvenient to have an undead. There should be a solution on the Supers Association forum. I'll check it out once I'm back. Ultimately, Michael decided to save his attribute points for later when he truly need them. His current strength was already sufficient. Closing his panel, he approached the corpse of the acid slime. Unfortunately, the only loot he found was the acid slime core. No spirit crystal this time. Michael wasn't too disappointed. He'd anticipated it. If spirit crystals were common, they wouldn't be so precious. Stashing the acid slime core in his mark of origin, Michael set off in search of more monsters. Chapter 22 Clearing the Space 4. 2 hours later, after thoroughly searching the abandoned building, Michael managed to kill 13 more slimes and leveled up. Unfortunately, even with this number, the experience he gained wasn't enough to raise his level by more than 1. As his level increased, it began to match that of the slimes in the building. The extra bonus experience points he earned from defeating higher-level monsters had little impact, as the strongest slime he encountered was only level 7. Most of the slimes Michael fought ranged from level 4 to level 5. Still, Michael wasn't discouraged. At least he wasn't in significant danger while leveling up. It was well known that as one's level increased, it became progressively harder to advance. There were 2 main reasons for this. 1. The risk factor. Fighting stronger monsters carried greater risks. Most Awakeners avoided recklessly endangering their lives and instead preferred steady, gradual growth. After all, they had time and no inherent bottlenecks. Sooner or later, their accumulated experience would lead to leveling up. 2. Scaling challenges. As Awakeners grew stronger, so did the monsters. The advantage provided by attribute points diminished over time. For instance, common grade monsters could only reach a maximum of level 21 with 3 stars. Any monster that could reach above level 21 was a rare grade monster species, and the difficulty only escalated as their levels increased. While attribute points could allow Awakeners to compete with rare grade monsters, they became insufficient against higher grade foes. Of course, none of this had much relevance to Michael at the moment. He was satisfied that he had managed to reach level 5. The slimes also provided him with 4 spirit crystals and a good haul of slime cores. But these weren't his greatest gains. After killing the final slime, Michael finally discovered the exit to the building he was trapped in. The exit was wide open, revealing more abandoned buildings in the distance. Some of these structures had partially crumbled into dust, while others were overgrown with thick grass. Roots sprouted from the walls, similar to the building Michael was currently in. It was clear these buildings had been abandoned for a long time. Despite the temptation to leave, Michael didn't take a single step toward the exit. No, he didn't even dare approach it. Outside the exit was a staircase, and at the base of it stood a statue that blended seamlessly with the environment. If not for his caution and curiosity prompting him to use Detect O on the statue, Michael might have overlooked its peculiarity. No, more likely, he would have died. A gargoyle LV-21. Rank, rare. An old gargoyle, weakened after years of neglect. A gargoyle, a creature once thought to exist only in fiction back in his previous world, now stood just 20 meters away from him. However, this one was wingless, but that was the least of Michael's concerns. I'm cooked, he thought bitterly. His experience in the land of origin seemed cursed enough to rank among the top 100 most unfortunate starts for new Awakeners this year. First, he nearly died to a slime, and now, it turned out the slimes were merely appetizers for the main course. Trapped in what he assumed was an abandoned dormitory, Michael's options were limited. He considered making the holes in the roof bigger and climbing his way out. With his current strength, he could likely jump high enough to reach the roof. But this plan had its risks. For one, the noise could attract attention. Perhaps the gargoyle outside had noticed him but refrained from attacking because he was already inside the building it guarded. Even if he escaped unnoticed, what guarantee did he have that there weren't other monsters, possibly even stronger ones, lurking nearby? A rank 1, Level 11 monster like the gargoyle was already far beyond him. Adding more threats to the mix wasn't a gamble he wanted to take. I want my slimes back. Michael wanted to scream in frustration but held back, mindful of the gargoyle outside the building. Though he suspected the gargoyle might not come after him, he'd been in this building for hours, occasionally making noise. It wasn't a risk worth taking. Despite the dire situation, Michael wasn't in complete despair. At least he was still alive. And as long as that remained true, he could devise a way out. As thoughts raced through his mind, Michael made his way back to the spot where he'd first appeared. For some reason, this location always gave him a faint sense of comfort and security. Time to go back home. After several hours of running around, even though he was much stronger now, Michael was both physically and mentally drained. He carefully scanned his surroundings, ensuring no threats lurked nearby that could ambush his defenseless body. Only then did he sit down in a corner, taking out an energy nutrient from the Supers Association store. Tastes awful. But at least you won't starve, buddy, he muttered, patting himself as he swallowed the bitter liquid. Time to go back and look for solutions to my unwanted problems. Once ready, Michael disconnected his consciousness from the land of origin. Back in Aurora, his eyes slowly opened. Fuck. Chapter 23 posting on the forum. Michael felt conflicted about his first day in the land of origin. On one hand, it had been exciting. He had narrowly survived being killed by a slime, escaping disfigurement by sheer luck. On the other hand, it was downright terrible. His first battle had been a life-and-death struggle against one of the weakest species, a slime, and just as things seemed to improve, he encountered an even bigger boss. Is this what they mean by being at the gate of heaven yet unable to enter? He muttered, still lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling in silence. But despite the chaos, Michael couldn't deny one thing. However, it wasn't like there weren't any gains. Though his first experience in the other world left much to be desired, it gave him what he sought: strength. Status. Our name, Michael Norman. Class, Necromancer Apprentice. Our level, 5-4. EXP, 114 by 800. A strength, 2.5, 1.2. Our agility, 6.4, 5.0. Constitution, 4.3, 3.1. Intelligence, 8.5, 4.0. Attribute points, 18. Skills, Undead Summoning, Undead Revival, Detect, New. Basic Shot, New. Talent, Infinite Evolution. Class Skill, Contract Slot, 0 by 10. Michael had only been in the land of origin for about 3 hours, yet compared to yesterday, when he first awakened, his growth was astonishing. Those seniors on the forum were so right. The land of origin is no game, even though it looks like one, but it's truly an amazing place, he muttered in awe. A second later, his mood dipped into depression. Yet, even with all this growth, I still don't have any undead as a necromancer. My supposed highest stat, intelligence, is about to be overtaken by agility. Am I really a necromancer? Or am I becoming an assassin instead? Pausing, he chuckled bitterly. No, scratch that. I should be an archer. My only working skill is basic shot, and it doesn't even use mana. It's a physical skill fueled by stamina. Michael mockingly shook his head in helplessness as he stood and stretched his stiff muscles. Afterward, he grabbed his phone from the desk. 307, he read. That's roughly 3 hours spent in the land of origin. I left here a little afternoon, and it was approaching noon there before I left. Aurora's time is probably 3 to 4 hours ahead. Of course, the time zones of Aurora and the land of origin were unrelated, being completely different worlds. Still, Michael used the time difference as an estimate. With that thought lingering, Michael sat in the chair by his desk and logged into the Supers Association forum on his phone. This time, he wasn't just searching for answers. He planned to ask directly. Michael had too many uncertainties, and searching blindly for solutions without even knowing the right terms felt like trying to find a rumored treasure in the middle of an ocean. Conflicting first day in the land of origin. Michael began by detailing his experiences, his initial location, the eerie ruins, and how, as a necromancer, his environment didn't offer any way to have an undead. He also explained the challenge posed by the rank 1 monster blocking his path and sought advice on what to do next. The Supers Association reportedly had over 70,000 Awakeners. Though Michael wasn't sure how many were online, the forum currently showed 10,000 active users. Surely, among them, someone, Awakener or even cultivator, would have advice for his predicament. As Michael waited for his post to be verified, he browsed the forum to pass the time. He had barely reached the homepage when a trending topic caught his attention. Changes in the Federation. What's this? Michael muttered, intrigued. Changes in the Federation, he repeated thoughtfully, recalling something he had pondered back in the land of origin. The Federation's focus on Awakeners had always seemed odd to him. Most people, especially younger generations, only knew that the Federation valued Awakeners. The exact reasons remained unclear. They were also made to believe that cultivators were comparable to Awakeners, with the primary distinction being cultivation speed. However, as a new Awakener, Michael already knew this was inaccurate. He didn't claim to be an expert on cultivators, but access to the forum had expanded his understanding. For instance, a rank 2 Knight Elite, supposedly 10 times stronger than the average human, could easily be matched by a level 5 Awakener who hadn't even advanced yet. In his view, cultivators were barely comparable to Awakeners if they refrained from using attribute points. This was an undeniable gap, yet the public was deliberately led to believe otherwise. Michael suspected this misinformation served a purpose. Perhaps it was to prevent despair among those who failed to awaken, or maybe it aimed to avoid creating an intense social divide between Awakeners and cultivators. This social divide was evident on the forum, but in the real world, most people likely saw Awakeners and cultivators as only slightly different, both possessing great powers but nothing vastly superior. All of this seemed suspicious, and Michael felt certain only that the Federation knew the truth. Now, staring at the trending topic, curiosity got the better of him. He tabbed the post. Chapter 24 Thoughts. The post's author was a level 2 member of the Supers Association, 1 rank above Michael. It had also been published just a day ago, taking that time to gain enough traction to trend on the forum. Changes in the Federation. Name, Billy Stormman. Level 2. Date published, Thursday, 18th of the 7th month. Year 228 of the new era, 1 day ago. I am a mage commander studying at the Moonstone Cultivation Academy. A week ago, I returned home for vacation. Normally, when the academy grants a break to prepare for incoming college exams, we older students usually choose one of 2 options: spend some time with our families before resuming training or head straight to the dimensional cracks for training. However, this post isn't about that. Since I have 3 months of vacation, I decided to spend some of it with my family, given I missed the opportunity last year. But to my surprise, when I got home, I noticed something strange. Whenever I come back, my younger siblings typically ask me ignorant questions about Awakeners and cultivators. This time, however, they seemed to know more than I did before entering the academy. At first, I worried they had been dabbling in illegal channels to access classified information. But I quickly learned that their school had started teaching them this new knowledge. Curious, I asked some of my schoolmates who also went home for the break. They reported similar changes in their sibling schools, though it seemed this was happening mainly in big cities. For now, I'm confused. Wasn't the Federation the one restricting information about supernatural professions, especially for children? Why are they suddenly releasing it now? If you check YouTube, you'll find videos containing information we couldn't access in high school. I'm not personally affected, but I'm curious. Does anyone know what's going on? After reading the post, Michael's heart grew slightly heavy. The content of the post touched on something he had considered before. Seeing that others seemed to share his suspicions, or at least that his doubts were partially validated, left Michael deep in thought. Even the mention of the Moonstone Cultivation Academy, the first time he had encountered the name of a supernatural institute, failed to hold much of Michael's attention. In a way, this highlighted how severely information about the supernatural had been suppressed in this world. For students who began cultivating at a young age, to remain unaware of the names of colleges they could potentially attend was telling. This kind of reminds me of those cultivation novels I read back on Earth, Michael thought. In those worlds, mortals knew of the existence of immortals, but anything beyond that was treated as forbidden or rare knowledge. The Federation has been suppressing information about awakeners and cultivators for so long, so why are they changing now? As a transmigrator, Michael had spent some time reflecting on the nature of this world, despite having been here for just over 3 weeks. Since his awakening, Michael had often wondered. Awakeners and cultivators were supposedly respected members of society, yet strangely little was known about them or their way of life. Occasionally, there were glimpses, videos, for instance, but even those were superficial. From Michael's current perspective, they appeared designed to mislead the public rather than inform them. The information taught in schools about awakeners and cultivators was even more lacking than he initially imagined. What was provided was the barest minimum, and while it might have seemed like a lot to the former Michael, the awakened Michael now saw how insignificant it truly was. If Michael had transmigrated as an adult without memories of this world, he might have initially thought it was simply a technologically advanced version of Earth. This realization underscored how, despite being a driving force in society, awakeners and cultivators were almost invisible. Perhaps this felt normal to most people in this world since it had always been this way for them. However, as a transmigrator, Michael's perspective was different. Initially, he hadn't bothered much about the situation since he wasn't even sure if he'd be able to awaken a class. If he had failed to awaken, and the Federation continued the way it did, the Federation's suppression of information would have ensured he remained ignorant about the supernatural, just like the majority of citizens. This was why the post he had just read struck Michael so deeply. He had two pressing questions. 1. Why had information about awakeners and cultivators been suppressed for so long? 2. Why was information being released now? What is happening in the Federation? Chapter 25 Truth of the World. As several thoughts flashed through Michael's mind, he scrolled to the comments section under the post. I knew something like this was going to happen sooner or later. Though I get the Federation's point of view due to the tragic events of the past, they need to remember that they are raising humans, people, not animals in a cage. Those dogs have been in power for so long that it's gone to their heads. I agree with Senior's words, though I wouldn't dare to be as blunt. Haha, new cultivator here. What were the tragic events that happened in the past? Are they the reason the Federation suppresses news about us? One particular comment caught Michael's attention. First, it was the audacity of the writer that stood out, though Michael decided to wisely ignore it, as it came from a level 5 member. Second, it was the content that truly intrigued him. Tragic events. What events could have possibly made the Federation so determined to suppress news about us? Curious, Michael continued reading the thread with heightened focus. After the new cultivator asked for guidance, another level 5 member stepped in to reply. Before I answer, let me ask you this. What happens when you put poor and rich people together in the same space? A social structure forms, senior. In this social structure, who does it benefit? The rich, senior. Exactly. To put it simply, the rich oppress the poor, directly or indirectly. And this is for something as mundane as wealth. Now, what do you think happens when you put people with supernatural powers alongside ordinary humans who depend on them to survive? Back in the Dark Ages, a year after the dimensional cracks appeared and unleashed monsters, humanity's population plummeted to just 100 million. This and a few other things are what the kids nowadays are aware of. In truth, they know nothing at all. It was at the point of close extinction hope came. The arrival of Awakeners gave humanity a fighting chance, and years later, the cultivators followed. This was the turning point when humans began to fight back. During those desperate times, survival was the priority, and there was little concern for status. However, as the situation improved, things changed. Ordinary humans idolized the supernaturals, and the supernaturals began to see themselves as superior. This mindset grew stronger as humanity stabilized. Awakeners and cultivators began treating ordinary humans as lesser beings, and ordinary humans, in turn, accepted this dynamic. It wasn't uncommon back then for a cultivator to kill an ordinary human out of anger, and both sides would see it as normal. Over time, things worsened. Some supernaturals turned into demonic beings, demonic cultivators or awakeners. One powerful mage once sacrificed 1,000,000 lives, and that was among the lesser tragedies. Others committed far worse atrocities. Oh, you might curse those demonic supernaturals, but remember, before they fell to darkness, they were once humans too. Even you can't deny that, with your powers, you've started to see yourself as superior to others. Reading this made Michael's heart heavy. The senior was right. Slowly but surely, he had begun to see himself as superior, not to humans but to cultivators. Yet, if he viewed himself as above cultivators, who were already higher than ordinary humans, wasn't he essentially agreeing that ordinary people were beneath him? With a heavy heart, Michael continued reading. He now knew what the previous level 5 member meant by tragic events of the past. Yet, this still didn't fully explain why the Federation suppressed knowledge about Awakeners and cultivators. When demonic cultivators grew more rampant, the powerful figures in the government stepped in to suppress them. But here's the brutal truth. We are indeed superior to ordinary humans. Denying this would be hypocrisy. And because of this superiority, the Federation decided to prevent another crisis by isolating ordinary humans from supernatural matters while creating a separate space for us. They suppressed news about supernatural's powers so ordinary people wouldn't realize the vast difference between them and subconsciously considered themselves inferior, just as in the Dark Ages. At the same time, they worked to redirect supernatural's focus away from meddling in ordinary people's lives. This led to the creation of two worlds, one for supernaturals and another for ordinary humans. Even cultivator trainees below college level are taught only how to cultivate, with martial discipline imposed on them much like ordinary humans. This created a sense of equality, and the method worked for decades, preventing the rise of demonic supernaturals. But alas, it also made us weaker as a whole. Billy Stormman, thanks for answering. Seniors, we were taught about this in school, but I'm still confused. How does suppressing information about us make us weaker overall? And what does this have to do with the Federation releasing bits of information now? After reading the senior level 5 members' words, Michael fell into deep thought. It was only after a while that he snapped out of it. Demonic awakeners and cultivators, the Dark Age, and the Federation's actions. I am truly ignorant of the world I'm in. Michael's heart felt heavy. The senior's words revealed that he was surrounded by a fog of ignorance. Fortunately, as an awakener, he could slowly clear this fog and learn more about the truth of the world. Turning his attention back to the comments, Michael couldn't help but reflect. Though we were taught about the Dark Age in school, it was definitely not as revealing as this. The saying that history is written by the victors is true. Who knows how much of what we were taught as history is actually the truth? The more he discovered about the public's ignorance of the world they lived in, the heavier his heart grew. To some extent, he could relate to the seniors' frustration. While he understood the Federation's desire to avoid creating an obvious social structure between supernaturals and ordinary humans, it also felt like they were treating humans like livestock. This realization left Michael conflicted. The Federation, which once seemed like the good guys, now felt much more ambiguous. Demonic cultivators. The seniors said they were suppressed, not eradicated. Could they still exist somewhere in this world? The sense of security Michael once felt in the real world began to crumble. The waters of this world are indeed too deep. Aside from this revelation, Michael felt an even greater need to become stronger. My greatest strength is my class, so I can't leave the matter of undead unattended for long. My leveling speed is still too slow. And then there's the college exams to prepare for. Though I question the authenticity of these institutions after learning about the Federation's actions, Billy's comment under the seniors' post shows there's still much to learn from them. But compared to my peers who awakened years ago, and even those who awakened last year, I'm far behind. With only 3 months of preparation, there's little to no time. Michael clenched his fists, determination welling up within him. I must get stronger. As several thoughts flashed through Michael's mind, he turned his attention back to the comments section. There was something the senior had said that left him confused. We're weaker overall. Thankfully, Billy, the author of the post, had asked the same question, and another individual, though not a level 5 member this time but a level 3, responded. By saying we are weak overall, what the senior meant is that the public no longer has a strong drive for strength. You might think they do, but they don't. What happens in a world where the poor don't feel much different from the rich? Will they strive for wealth as a goal, or simply for convenience? I visited the martial arts cultivator world before, and the commoners there are deeply oppressed by those in power. But compared to people in our world, those so-called commoners hunger for power with an intensity that moved me. Unlike her, where an 18-year-old who has failed their awakening will give up on gaining strength and settle for getting by in society. I agree with the senior. If the public truly knew the extent of Awakeners and Cultivators' power, and felt it, they'd hunger for it. That hunger would, in turn, boost our national strength. But in recent years, the number of new cultivators has been steadily declining. Perhaps the Federation can no longer ignore this and is being forced to take action, reminding the public of the supernatural elements available in their world. Our world is not as safe as the public believes. You, as a student of an academy, should know this better than anyone. Use every moment to grow stronger for yourself, your loved ones, and our people. May the will of Aurora prevail for 1,000,000 years. Billy Stormman, thank you for your advice. May the will of Aurora prevail for 1,000,000 years. Chapter 26, New Understanding. May the will of Aurora prevail for 1,000,000 years. The sentence felt like a slogan, stirring something deep within Michael. Even the revelation of the level 3 member traveling to another world didn't catch much of his attention. In school, they were taught that some dimensional cracks from the Dark Age still remained. While most led to places filled with monsters, a few opened gateways to other realms like Aurora. They had also been told that these monsters were a significant reason why cultivators and awakeners were vital to society. Yet, the seriousness of it all had eluded him back then, as the topic was presented in a light, almost casual manner. Even combat classes felt more like physical education than actual preparation for life-threatening situations. Reading the comments section under Billy's post, however, shattered that illusion. Michael realized that reality was far harsher than what they were taught. Aurora wasn't safe. Whether the threat came from monsters, demonic supernaturals, or something else entirely, he didn't know. But one thing was clear: he needed strength. Whatever the Federation's motives were for gradually unveiling the truth to the public, Michael understood that he had to be ready for whatever followed. He tried to dig deeper into the comments, hoping to find more insights about the Federation's actions, but nothing else was as informative as the comments from the seniors. Most were either empty speculations or cheap imitations of what had already been said. Realizing he wouldn't find anything more useful, Michael dismissed the post. Curious about the truth of the world he lived in, Michael began searching for topics he had never considered before. His first search focused on the Dark Age, but the information available mirrored what he had been taught in school. However, when he searched for demonic supernaturals, he discovered new insights. Thankfully, his level 1 membership granted him access to this information. For one, his suspicion that demonic supernaturals still existed was confirmed. Michael learned that both the Federation and students from cultivation and awakener academies occasionally hunted them. However, details about their recent actions or larger operations remained inaccessible to him. Still, knowing they were still a threat made his heart grow heavier. Next, Michael delved into dimensional cracks. Beyond the simplified descriptions given in school, where they were portrayed as harmless as neighboring countries, he discovered that the reality was much grimmer. It wasn't the monster-filled cracks that posed the greatest danger to Aurora, but those leading to other realms. These cracks introduced him to a new term: invader invasions. Michael learned that some civilizations on the other side of these cracks sought to expand their control over Aurora, resulting in ongoing wars. This revelation shocked him. Despite the end of the Dark Age, Aurora was far from safe. The public's ignorance was protected by the sacrifices of others, who fought wars that few could properly appreciate. Unfortunately, Michael's low authority level once again restricted his access to more information. Still, he gleaned enough to know that Academy students like himself were regarded as reserve soldiers for the Federation, tasked with defending Aurora from both internal and external threats alongside the military. Having frequently encountered references to supernatural academies in his searches, Michael made them his next research topic. In a few minutes, he learned more about his world than he had in all his years at school. This world isn't safe. I need strength to protect myself and my family. The Federation seems to have reached a dead end. I can only rely on myself. In the end, it all comes down to strength. With strength, the road ahead will be clearer. But even now, there are things I can and must do. Michael listed his priorities. First, I need to start fully utilizing my class advantages. Necromancers are known for having one of the fastest leveling speeds, as they earn a percentage of the experience from enemies killed by their summons. My class is also one of the strongest, capable of functioning as a one-man army, much like a beast tamer in the later stages. Wasting this potential would be foolish. Having an undead could also be the turning point for me to finally make use of my talent. I really hope it is. Then there's the college exam. With my current strength, getting into a top Awakener academy is a pipe dream. Only cultivation academies might accept me due to my identity as an Awakener. But since this directly impacts my growth and access to information, I have to take it seriously. Lastly, I need to find a solution for the ruins I'm trapped in within the land of origin. If I don't, my growth will be even slower. After setting these goals, Michael finally turned his attention to his present situation. The Super Association system had notified him minutes ago that his post was approved, but he had been too engrossed in his research to check it. He hadn't expected immediate responses anyway and decided to wait. Returning to his post, Michael was shocked to find it had garnered over 30 comments and a surprising amount of traction, more than 30,000 views in just half an hour. The unexpected popularity stunned him. "I hope I can find something useful," Michael muttered as he opened the comment section, only to be taken aback again. To his surprise, nearly no one seemed concerned about his struggles as a necromancer. Instead, the majority were fixated on his initial location, ignoring the topic of his post entirely. "I don't know if I should call you lucky or unlucky. Lucky because you somehow stumbled into ruin every Awakener prays for, and unlucky because you're too weak to explore it, stopped by a mere level 21 monster." A level 21 monster? Weak? Oh, that's a rank 1 monster close to the limit, Michael thought, feeling both attacked and embarrassed. Despite the sting, the comment made him pause. Ruins. Michael had read novels back on Earth where such places brimmed with treasures. But back in the land of origin, he hadn't been thinking about ruins. His focus had been on scouring dorm rooms for mist slimes, not the ancient significance of his surroundings. Curious, Michael continued reading other comments. Gargoyles are artificially created monsters, so it's almost certain you are in a ruin. As 3-star rare-grade monsters, their weakest are usually around level 20. Given your description of the ruin, it's clearly very old. Gargoyles don't lose levels even after 50 years, so the ruin you're in is at least 100 years old. The older the ruin, the more valuable its treasures. I'd say you're lucky, kid. Just don't die there before enhancing your strength by leveling up in real life. This comment, far more informative, caught Michael's attention. Checking the commenter's profile, he saw they were a level 4 member. Michael's curiosity deepened. He had recently searched for the meaning behind the Super Association's member levels and now understood their significance. Times level 1 members, unranked to rank 1 Awakeners, and rank 1 to 2 cultivators, apprentice and elite. Times level 2 members, rank 2 Awakeners, and rank 3 to 4 cultivators, commander and master. Times level 3 members, rank 3 Awakeners, and rank 5 cultivators, king level. Times level 4 members, rank 4 Awakeners, and rank 6 cultivators, emperor level. Times level 5 members, rank 5 Awakeners, and rank 7 cultivators, demigod level. Realizing this, Michael felt a newfound respect for the seniors in the forum. Those level 5 members were akin to demigods in strength. They truly deserved to be addressed with such reverence. With his current power, Michael couldn't even begin to fathom the strength of a being addressed as a demigod. He also noticed a distinct pattern. Starting from rank 5 in the cultivation power system, king level, the gap between Awakeners and cultivators began to narrow. An Awakener rank was no longer comparable to the cultivator ranks, at least on the surface. Perhaps cultivators experienced a significant boost at king level, but Michael wasn't worried. Awakeners wouldn't stagnate either. They grew stronger with each rank advancement. Of course, a king-level cultivator was still far beyond Michael's reach and deserving of respect. The Awakener who responded to his post was a level 4 member, making them comparable to an emperor-level cultivator, just below the demigod rank. As an Awakener, they might even stand a chance against a demigod. It was clear this level 4 member was a senior as well. Michael hurriedly gave his thanks. Fortunately, I wasn't desperate enough to do something reckless. I might have missed this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Michael thought. Dying in the land of origin came with heavy consequences. Not only did one lose 10% of their stats permanently, but their location also changed. If Michael died in the ruin, he could kiss it goodbye. The senior's advice also reminded him of something he'd read earlier about dimensional cracks. These cracks were under Federation supervision, and gaining access required either Supers Association membership or Academy enrollment. While Michael wasn't an Academy student, his Supers Association membership granted him access to cracks within his member level's limit. This realization gave him hope. Now that he had clarity on his location, Michael shifted focus to the next issue. Fortunately, someone among these ruin-obsessed Awakeners remembered, "I'm a Necromancer in distress." Chapter 27 Solution. Hey bro, fellow Undead user here. Haha. Funny thing is, I ended up in a situation just like yours. Stuck in a location where I couldn't even get an Undead. It was near the outskirts of a kingdom's capital, right where the headquarters of a massive religion and their pope reside. I'd have been deader than dead if I tried summoning an Undead there. Honestly, your situation isn't that bad. Just head to the Supers Association and buy a monster corpse. It's not even that expensive. The cheapest ones go for about 3,000 at least, so it's pretty affordable. Since I had the funds, I bought several level 10 monster corpses. Haha. You can also check out the monster breeding centers in your area, but they usually sell corpses for way more than the Supers Association does. Michael checked the name of the commenter. Leovani Lorenzio. The name was quite fancy. Leonie was also a level 1 member, just like Michael. From the tone and first sentence of Leonie's comment, Michael deduced this bro was likely a peer, a fellow new Awakener. Whether this bro was 16, 17, or perhaps even his exact age was unknown to Michael, though he couldn't care less. What mattered most was the comment's helpfulness. Why didn't I think of this? Michael muttered, tapping his forehead. Of course, the Supers Association would be a good solution for getting an Undead. He shook his head, feeling helpless that such an obvious solution hadn't occurred to him before. While Michael didn't know that the Supers Association sold corpses, as it wasn't something listed in their forum store, they could undoubtedly grant him access to places where acquiring a monster corpse wouldn't be an issue, such as dimensional cracks. With their access to dimensional cracks, it also made sense that the association would have access to monster corpses. As for breeding centers, though unfamiliar with them, Michael wasn't surprised by their existence. Almost every teenager under 18 aspired to either become an Awakener or a cultivator. However, most were realistic enough to understand that awakening was left to fate, making cultivation the hot choice. As a result, nearly all students practiced some form of cultivation. Though the Federation suppressed information about Awakeners and cultivators, a few videos still leaked. While they didn't reveal the full extent of their powers, the fact that the strongest unofficial cultivation apprentices were twice as strong as the average human was enough to inspire young people. Maybe if they knew there were strong cultivators who could crush monsters 100 feet tall, they'd take cultivation more seriously, Michael thought. But with the Federation now releasing more information about supernaturals, perhaps more students would grow interested in cultivation and take it seriously under the allure of supreme power. Returning to the topic of breeding centers, Michael wasn't shocked by their existence. In city malls, beast meat, a cultivation resource for apprentices, was openly sold, clearly sourced from monsters. If such products were available, it stood to reason that breeding centers for monsters existed too. Still, Michael was more familiar with the Supers Association than breeding centers. Until now, he hadn't even been aware breeding centers existed. Like most people, he had assumed beast meat came from dead monsters, not ones bred like livestock. After all, to the general public, monsters were nothing more than enemies. Are monster corpses really this expensive? Michael muttered, his eyes twitching slightly. At $3,000 per corpse, he questioned whether the $15,000 monthly benefit he received would even be enough to buy 5. Worse still, with intermediate mastery of Undead Revival only offering a 50% success rate, there was a significant chance that a large chunk of his money could be wasted. "This is a bit too rich for me," he sighed. For someone born and raised in poverty, Leovani was wealthy in Michael's eyes. A level 10 monster corpse wasn't going to be cheap. Yet this rich guy had bought 10 at once and called it affordable. It was clear that this bro was some sort of young master. Even so, Michael was grateful for Giovanni's advice. The comment had helped him clear his thoughts significantly. Giovanni was also the only person, aside from the senior who had advised him about the ruins, to offer practical help. After sending his thanks to Giovanni, Michael logged out of the Supers Association forum and leaned back in his chair. "Somehow, I feel like I forgot something," Michael thought, though he dismissed the feeling after a few seconds. If it was important, it would come back to him later. His head was still buzzing from everything he had learned on the forum, leaving no room for minor distractions. Michael rested for about 10 minutes before getting up. It was close to 4 p.m., a perfect time to still head out. Now that he knew how to solve his undead summoning issue, he felt impatient. Deciding to freshen up to wash away some of the mental exhaustion from the land of origin, Michael prepared to visit the local Supers Association branch. "I should sell some of my loot while I'm there. I'm broke. So broke." After leaving his apartment, Michael was fortunate to find a cab quickly to take him to the Supers Association. While waiting briefly for transportation, he had an impulsive thought: to run to the association at full speed and play superhero, recreating the Flash in this world. However, laziness won out in the end. That, and the very real possibility of injuring someone along the way. Michael didn't want the Federation breathing down his neck. Perhaps that was why other Awakeners also kept a low profile, as there were no reports of anyone openly showing off their powers in public. Still, he wondered if things might change once the Federation released more information about Awakeners and cultivators. Perhaps they might have their rights improved, and maybe he could even use a Mao-type undead in broad daylight one day. Chapter 28: Buying Monster Corpses 1. The journey to the Supers Association was uneventful. However, Michael found himself growing paranoid due to his newfound knowledge of demonic supernaturals. Before entering the cab, he even used detect on the driver. The result was almost the same as with every other person he scanned along the way: a level 1 human. It was unsurprising, as non-Awakeners lacked attribute points and were likely judged solely by their race. Michael recalled that a human level up granted +0.2 to all stats and +0.5 to intelligence. By level 11, a human's average stats would match those of a new official night cultivator, roughly twice as strong as the average person. Coincidentally, this corresponded with the first rank in the night cultivator system. However, Michael wasn't entirely certain about the level representation of non-Awakeners when using detect. It was possible that a level 10 human was more than just a human leveling up 9 times. Until confirmed, it wouldn't be wise to assume someone's prowess solely based on the level displayed. Michael was also lucky to even encounter a middle-aged man in his late 30s, the only level 11 human he met during the trip. He remembered reading on the forum when he read about members' level that only Awakeners and official cultivators under the age of 20, with rare exceptions above that age, had access to the Supers Association forum. It was noted in bold that individuals in their 30s rarely had access. It was evident that those lacking cultivation talent were left to live average lives. The Federation likely saw no benefit in sharing core supernatural knowledge with them, avoiding unnecessary risks. From this perspective, Michael found himself agreeing with the Federation's approach. He could easily imagine how panicked his aunt, who had lived her entire life in ignorance, would feel upon learning the truth about the world at her age. Would it be the crushing realization of her lack of talent that devastated her, or the fear that her children might become entangled in dangerous circumstances if they awakened or proved talented in cultivation. Michael's vivid imagination even suggested that such despair could be exploited by demonic cultivators to recruit fresh blood. Humans, after all, were complex beings capable of compromising their morals to fulfill their desires. Yet, Michael also recognized another side to the issue. If people like his aunt had been exposed to these truths earlier in life, while still young enough to adapt, they might have grown accustomed to it, just as those who lived through the Dark Age had learned to endure suppression under the supernaturals. Slowly, Michael began to understand the seniors who sighed at Aurora's current state. It was becoming increasingly clear that over 90% of its residents were delicate greenhorns, fragile enough to crumble under the slightest pressure. In this regard, Earth had an edge over Aurora. Back on Earth, even young children were aware of the world's harsh realities. In emergencies, widespread panic was less likely to erupt among Earth's population. But Michael wasn't as confident about Aurora. If the truth was revealed or a crisis arose, it might lead to an increase in demonic supernaturals instead. It wasn't impossible. While some people might be inspired to work harder after witnessing part of the full extent of a cultivator's power, potentially increasing the nation's strength and reducing pressure on the front lines, which was likely the Federation's goal, others, especially the less talented, could succumb to desperation. Demonic cultivators might exploit this desperation, offering forbidden methods to gain strength and seducing the vulnerable into their ranks. It wasn't impossible. How many people back on Earth had committed terrible acts due to poverty? If the absence of wealth could drive such actions, the lack of supernatural power could potentially lead to even worse outcomes. Anyway, the future was currently none of Michael's business. With his strength, he wasn't qualified to worry about it. If the sky fell, there were stronger people than him to hold it up. "Thanks for the ride," Michael said, paying his fare after scanning the payment code. "You are welcome," the driver replied politely. Without looking back, Michael made his way into the Supers Association. This was his second time personally entering the building. Just like yesterday, the exterior appeared quiet, but the interior was bustling with activity. Is it soundproofing magic or something? Michael wondered. Also, like yesterday, he noticed several young faces, likely new Awakeners who had come to register today. As expected, there were fewer than yesterday. The notable difference was that most were casually dressed, unlike Michael and the others who had shown up in their uniforms the previous day. As he observed his surroundings, Michael lined up at the same queue leading to the receptionist who had assisted him during registration. Though they weren't particularly familiar, Michael preferred speaking with a familiar face about his matters. The queue wasn't long, so in about 20 minutes, he reached the receptionist. "Good evening," Michael greeted as they made eye contact. "Good evening, sir. How may I assist you today?" the lady replied with a professional yet slightly more genuine smile, indicating she recognized him. Michael didn't waste time and went straight to the point. "Are there any monster corpses available at the association? Also, I'd like to sell something," he said. While purchases could be made directly from the store in the forum, items were often available for immediate pickup at the association itself. However, selling could only be done in person at the association. "We do have monster corpses here, sir, but this isn't the right spot to inquire about them," the receptionist replied calmly, her expression showing no sign of surprise at the question. "Ah, I see. My apologies. Where should I go?" Michael asked softly, feeling a bit embarrassed for wasting her time. With a sweet smile, the receptionist pointed in a specific direction and provided clear instructions. "You'll find a counter with a sign that says, Trade Center. That's where you can buy and sell whatever you need." "Thank you," Michael said sincerely. The receptionist nodded in acknowledgement, and Michael immediately headed toward the trade center. The Supers Association branch building was quite large, but it wasn't difficult to locate the area. The trade center resembled a shop, with a wide window counter behind, which sat a middle-aged man reading a book. The man's face bore a long, hideous scar, instantly sparking Michael's curiosity. Subconsciously, Michael activated Detect as soon as he came within 10 meters, half of the skill's current range limit. Level? Human. Ah. Michael froze in surprise. As if sensing something, the scarred man suddenly looked up and locked eyes with him. For reasons he couldn't quite explain, Michael's heart trembled. Chapter 29 By Monster Corpses 2. Who is this? Did he notice I used Detect on him? Michael's heart pounded in shock, but he forced himself to remain calm as he continued toward the trade center. He couldn't be sure if the scarred man had sensed his use of Detect, but one thing was clear. This man was no ordinary individual. It wasn't just a matter of being 20 levels stronger. Even a rank 2 cultivator shouldn't evoke such an overwhelming reaction from him. Michael hadn't yet encountered a rank 2 cultivator face-to-face, but he doubted they could instill this level of unease. Another realization struck him. Detect as limitations seem to extend to cultivators as well. Okay, maybe I'm getting too cocky. 20 levels above me is still 20 levels above me. As Michael reached the counter and opened his mouth to speak, the scarred man beat him to it. It's quite rude to spy on others, young lad, the man said calmly, his piercing gaze fixed on Michael. I don't mind, but others with a shorter temper might have taught you a lesson by now. Michael's heart jolted again. So he did sense it. Michael's emotions were anything but calm. He had suspected the man might have noticed, but hearing it confirmed sent chills down his spine. I'm sorry, sir, Michael said sincerely, bowing slightly. He didn't feel wronged or insulted by the reprimand. It was indeed rude to spy on others. This interaction also raised questions. Just how strong was this man? A Detect or didn't rely on any form of energy, so it shouldn't have been easy to notice. Truly, even without the same potential as Awakeners, cultivators are strong beings, Michael thought, silently chastising himself. He recalled using Detect on nearly everyone he encountered this evening, and cold sweat broke out on his back. Had he used it on someone with malicious intent who noticed him, he could have landed himself in serious trouble. Awakeners might possess great potential, but without actual strength, potential alone meant little. At level 5, Michael was still far too weak. It's okay, just be careful, the man said, waving dismissively. Then, in a businesslike tone, he added, So, what do you want? Michael felt relief at the man's indifference and quickly complied, eager to move on. I'd like a monster corpse, please, and I have something to sell as well, Michael said, reaching into his storage space and producing a spirit crystal. After purchasing items from the Supers Association store and giving his aunt $5,000, Michael had less than $5,000 left in his account. If he bought a monster corpse at $3,000 as Lovani suggested, he could only afford one. Had he not given his aunt the money, he could have bought at least 2. Still, Michael didn't regret helping Aunt Mia. After all, there was no guarantee that the money spent on an extra corpse would yield an undead. His Undead Revival at Intermediate Mastery only provided a 50% success rate, with up to 3 attempts per corpse. Even then, success wasn't assured. Perhaps this reasoning was a way to justify his decision, but it wasn't entirely false. Oh, you were an Awakener. No wonder. Only your type spies like thieves, the middle-aged man said expressionlessly. Actually holding a grudge, huh? Michael thought, his eyelid twitching. He chose not to respond. The man's words revealed a lack of respect for Awakeners, unlike the admiration they often received on the forum. This suggested 2 possibilities. Either he despised them, or he was incredibly powerful. Either way, Michael decided it wasn't his concern. Unranked spirit crystal. The man examined the crystal briefly before adding, "This one's a bit stronger than usual. I'll offer you $17,500 for it. What do you think?" "Yes, please," Michael replied instantly. He was surprised by the man's ability to discern the crystal's energy level so easily. It had come from a level 7 slime, making it superior to lower-level crystals in the same rank. Michael had singled it out on a hunch, hoping to get a higher price, and his gamble paid off. "Okay. Should I transfer the money to your account, or do you want to use it now to buy monster corpses?" the man asked as he placed the crystal into a box from beneath the counter. "I'll use it all," Michael replied without hesitation. Buying one corpse wasn't going to be enough. Except it was special. Despite parting with the money again, Michael felt satisfied with the straightforward transaction and the unexpected profit. "All right. Go through that entrance," the man said, pointing to an open doorway beside the shop. Michael had noticed the entrance earlier, but assumed it led somewhere unrelated to the trade center. However, being within the Supers Association, Michael wasn't too concerned and followed the man's instructions. Apparently, the trade center had an exit leading to the corridor the doorway entrance led into. As Michael found himself following the scarred man after stepping through the doorway and walking forward a bit. After closing the trade center door, the man said nothing and simply led Michael further down the corridor. Michael wondered why the man wasn't concerned about leaving the trade center unattended, considering the goods like potions stored there. Soon, he dismissed the thought. Anyone brazen enough to steal within the association's territory deserved some respect. The corridor had several doors leading to unknown areas, likely storage rooms for other items. Eventually, they stopped in front of a door exuding a cold chill, reminiscent of a cold storage facility. The scarred man pressed his thumb against the doorknob, unlocking it. Inside was indeed a cold room with smaller compartments branching off. Breaking the silence since leaving the trade center, the scarred man finally spoke. "Woodstone City only has 3-dimensional cracks, 2 level 1 cracks, and 1 level 2 crack. So we only stock level 1 and level 2 monster corpses. Which do you want?" "What level 1 monsters do you have?" Michael asked. Thanks to the Supers Association forum and his search this evening, Michael was a little knowledgeable about dimensional cracks now. He recalled that level 1 dimensional cracks only produce monsters at most equivalent to a peak rank 1 cultivator, while level 2 cracks produce monsters up to peak rank 2. Given his limited funds, Michael opted for the more affordable level 1 corpses. For level 1, we have forest wolves at $4,000 each and goblins at $1,000 each. Why are goblins so cheap? Goblins are weak, trash monsters with little value, the scarred man replied bluntly. Michael refrained from commenting, already growing accustomed to the man's bluntness. "Can I choose the bodies myself?" Michael asked, hoping to select corpses with higher star ratings, which meant higher level limits. Fortunately, the scarred man nodded in agreement. "What monster do you want to start with?" "Let's start with the forest wolves." Chapter 30: Creating an Undead. Though the storage room was cold, Michael's constitution allowed him to endure it without much discomfort. The scarred man led Michael to a compartment containing the corpses of forest wolves. They were stored on bunk shelves, 2 bodies per shelf, with 6 rows in total, 12 corpses altogether. Michael wasn't sure if this was a large or small number, but it felt like the latter. He briefly wondered why the association kept monster corpses in the first place, but the scarred man's cold demeanor dissuaded him from asking. Eager to finally get his hands on material for creating his undead, Michael began using Detect on the forest wolf corpses. A forest wolf LV2. Rank Common. Dead. A forest wolf LV4. Rank Common. Dead. A forest wolf LV5. A rank Common. Dead. A forest wolf LV2. A rank Common. Dead. Michael's requirements weren't high. He simply needed a monster above 1 star. A 1-star common rank monster had a maximum level of 7, which was due weak, offering little advantage over his current strength. A 2-star common rank monster could reach rank 1 level 4, level 14, which was barely acceptable in his eyes. Michael hoped to find a 3-star corpse. However, while it would allow for growth to level 21, he knew that a level 21 common rank monster would be inferior to a 3-star rare rank monster of the same level like the gargoyle back in the land of origin. Rank wasn't just about potential, but also reflected racial superiority. Even within the same species, bloodlines could vary in nobility and strength. This was evident in the difference between harmless 1-star slimes and 2-star acid slimes. Michael didn't need a powerful 3-star rare-grade monster like the gargoyle that had halted his exploration in the land of origin. Not to mention his inability to kill one. Rare-grade monsters were rarely unranked, and even if they were said to rival Awakeners, even factoring in the advantage of attribute points. He doubted he could even afford one if the option existed. In his opinion, a few 1-star rare-grade monsters at the peak of rank 1, level 25, or in rank 2, above level 25, paired with several 3-star common grade undead at level 21, rank 1, level 11, should be enough to overwhelm the gargoyle, provided he planned well. Unfortunately, no 3-star forest wolf corpses were available, and even the 2-star corpses he found didn't exceed 3. In the end, Michael purchased the 3 2-star forest wolf corpses and stored them in his mark of origin. As for the goblins, Michael didn't even bother. According to a post that mentioned slimes, goblins were grouped in the same category. Goblins were barely better than slimes, excelling only in reproduction. Michael had no interest in wasting money on such weak monsters. What he didn't expect, however, was how his opinion about goblins, or any so-called weak species, was about to change. After leaving the storage room, Michael provided his account details to collect the remaining $5,500, which would raise his balance back above $10,000 once transferred. He decided not to sell the other 3 spirit crystals he had. They might prove useful after creating an undead, assuming his talent demonstrates something, or for replenishing mana during the revival process, which consumes a significant amount. Spirit crystals were a better option for recovery than waiting for natural regeneration or relying on mana stones, crystals, or potions. Michael also remembered the slime cores he'd collected and decided to check if they could be sold. Surprisingly, the association accepted them. While slime cores weren't particularly valuable, selling for $100 each, Michael managed to earn $1,500 by selling 15 cores. As for why he hadn't sold them earlier alongside the spirit crystal, the reason was simple: he'd forgotten. The earlier event caused by him using detect on the scarred man, followed by their rapid exchange, had shifted his focus. Unlike spirit crystals, he never considered slime cores important. After exchanging farewells, though the scarred man only responded with a nod, Michael quickly exited the association building and hailed a cab home. This time, unlike his earlier trip, Michael refrained from using detect on everyone he encountered, now more cautious about his actions. Nearly an hour later, with no traffic, Michael arrived home faster than expected. After paying the cab fare, he hurried to his apartment, eager to enter the land of origin and finally summon an undead. Inside, he noticed his cousin Lily was back from school. She gave him a bewildered look as he greeted her in passing, clearly in a rush. Michael offered no explanation and quickly retreated to his room. Lying on his bed, he connected his consciousness to the land of origin. A moment later, a pair of eyes opened. "I'm back." An hour had passed since Michael left the land of origin, and the surroundings seemed a little brighter. "It's probably approaching noon," he thought, standing up. Cautiously, he stepped out of the room. Only after scanning his surroundings and confirming there was no danger did he relax. The land of origin was the only place Michael felt safe enough to create an undead. Attempting such a thing at home felt unwise, and he remained wary of anything supernatural in the real world. Here, he could afford to take risks since there was no true death, unlike in reality. This was why he hadn't dared to enter dimensional cracks himself to hunt monsters and instead opted to buy their corpses. Michael felt his current strength wasn't enough for such risks. Finding a wide, clear space in the abandoned dorms, Michael took a deep breath and released a forest wolf corpse from his storage space. For the first time since his awakening, he was one step closer to creating an undead. I hope my luck isn't too bad. With his undead revival at intermediate mastery, Michael had only 9 chances, 3 attempts per corpse, to create an undead. He would be lying if he said he wasn't nervous.